help me unpack this discussion is Eston Maina. This is a political scientist. Asante sana for making time. It has been a minute, and first we'll begin with the rapture. Is the mountain melting? I mean, when you look at the politics of, now we are talking about the politics of betrayal, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is now, crying for that president and his team, rather, those close to president, are plotting to actually sideline him in the government that they formed together. What is happening in the mountain?
I want us to look at this whole Mount Kenya conflict, or this Ruto-Gachagua conflict in the essence, or on the basis of what we call the conflict theory by two philosophers, there's Karl Marx and Max Weber, where they say two things. Number one, the basis upon which every relationship is founded is economic. Economic relationships are the basis or the foundation upon which every other relationship is founded, be it political, be it romantic, be it cordial. And that is why today the relationship between you and your employer is economic first before it is cordial. Because one of you has to offer a service and the other one has to offer a token or remuneration. It is the same when it comes to politics. We say that loyalty anywhere, not just in politics, is not permanent. It has to be serviced. You have to keep on renewing the subscription. It can be through tokenship, it can be through hope. For example, there are politicians like William Ruto who maybe prefer tokenship. They offer a token and in return they get loyalty. Now we have politicians like Raila Odinga. They don't offer tokens. What do they offer in the place of that economic relationship? Hope. They sell hope of a better economic future, of better, of economic prosperity.
All right.
So in this case, I think now the mountain is realizing that the amount or the number of votes that they provided or that they gave to this administration is not commensurate to what they're getting back. Because what has been happening, sidelining, they have their son who ascended as number 2, who is no longer being treated as number 2. There's a clear sidelining of the number 2.
Okay.
So what do you do in his place? You consolidate your backyard.
Okay. And what do you think could be the reason for this sidelining? I mean, this is a team, they were pairs, they were elected on a joint ticket. One is the president, the other is second in command. And by virtue of standards being the first, being the fact that they formed this, the house that they call UDA, and of course eventually that rose to power, and now they have this government. And when you see this, the early cries, if you ask me, this is too early for this. Well, what could have possibly, gone wrong between these two leaders? I remember there is a time that President William Ruto clearly said that he will not wish what happened to him happens to his deputy. Is it now, how could you explain this possibly? Because now we are seeing cries from Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua crying the same things that, President William Ruto, when he was Deputy President, used to complain back then, including being denied a means of transport, like say military chopper. And these are some of the complaints that Deputy President is, just complaining about what is happening to him. So this fed-up relationship.
One thing, Evans, politics is it is an art, and in every art, what we have is theatrics. You have to portray a particular picture that will sell the narrative that you want to sell. So there can be two possibilities here. The first possibility is, maybe William Ruto is actually sidelining Rigathi. Why? Because if there appears to be a threat in the mountain, maybe through the comeback of Uhuru Kenyatta, what would you want as William Ruto? A fragmented mountain, so that even if he comes back, he is not able to consolidate the entire mountain. Number two, this could be also a trick whereby they're trying to dangle a carrot to the Western region, which is rich in terms of votes, and telling them, see, I'm just with this guy, we're in this marriage for the children. And as soon as 2027 comes, I will pick one of you to be my running mate. And that way, he will ensure the loyalty of the Western, the Western voter. So there are those two possibilities.
But does he really need the Western vote? Because practically, the Western side did not really, their vote did not really count a lot, except from Bungoma County.
And that is why he's trying to quote, Raila Odinga, because yes, we all know the Western region has not had a kingpin for the longest time. But I want you to remember that Raila Odinga speaks, pretty much for that side.
All right.
And by having him by his side, if he is able to convince Raila Odinga to remain on his side, he might have the lakeside and maybe a huge chunk of the Western region.
Okay.
And in that case, what will he need? A fragmented mountain to make sure there is no formidable force to oppose him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, the turn of events. Now, Deputy President seems to be now talking some sort of a different language from what we used to maybe hear him talk about maybe a couple of months ago. Now he's talking about the Mount Kenya unity and why it's very important for him first as a deputy president to safeguard the interest of Mount Kenya people. Well, when you look at this now, the change and of course the change of events and now how things are now unfolding, then what do you read in his tone? Do you think maybe this is someone who has interacted with the ground and things are shifting, or what could actually, possibly perpetuate this act?
When I was introducing this conflict theory, I said it is founded upon two things. I told you one. Now the second thing is what we say on the perception of an external enemy. If people who have an economic relationship perceive an external enemy, they tend to unite. And this is the same thing that Gachagua is trying to play at. Now the mountain or the mountain people feel threatened economically based on what Gachagua is preaching about, the one man, one vote, one shilling. And what is being portrayed is that some region is getting maybe an upwards of 70,000 in terms of bursaries, while in the mountain we have as low as 2,000. So when there's that difference, and the people from the mountain feel cheated, what do? They will come together. They will come together to advocate for their economic prosperity. If they are convinced that, this person is not good for our businesses, you can see, the insane taxes that are being, imposed on your businesses and whatnot. They will tend to unite. Okay. And they will not unite because they love Gachagua. They will not unite because they see him as the best fit leader. They will unite because they have a common enemy. And at this point, who is the senior most, elected politician in Mount Kenya? Rigathi Gachagua. And that is what he's trying to play at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this could be as a result of what is happening on the ground.
Yes.
Well, there is still, talks about sons of the land. I'm talking about the Mount Kenya sons.
Yes.
Being used to actually, bring some sort of disunity and sideline now the people from the mountain. Probably, what is this? What is Deputy President referring to, and who are these sons of the mountain who are being used to sideline the people and actually create this division?
I think when it came to sharing this leadership cake, back in 2022, I think the Deputy President overlooked one very important factor. It is important to have your people in any form of marriage or any form of union or merger. And the problem with the Deputy President is that he came as a unit, and most of the leaders from the mountain who support UDA were funded by William Ruto. And consequently, he paid the piper, he is calling the tunes. And now Gachagua cannot go to the same people and have them play his songs. He can either go back to the ground, what he is doing right now, mobilize his own, nurture his own, then have them sing the same song. Because William Ruto was smart enough to finance his own people, groom them, and now they are singing his song. Yes, are they causing disunity in the mountain? They are. Why? Because they are singing the language of their master.
And when you talk about now the aspect of Gachagua as a character, well, this is our first time sitting MP, rose to the power to become the second most very powerful and senior person in this government against all odds. Well, when you look at his personality now as a person in terms of politics, don't you think this is a man that knows how to play his cards very well and has crafted some sort of art of navigating and speaking to the heart and mind of people? Do you think maybe Gachagua has what it takes to actually rally the mountain together and champion for this one voice that he so much advocates for?
We cannot overlook the Gachagua factor based on this. We tend to think that the only way you can be involved in politics is actively. You can actually be involved in politics passively. And he may not have been an elected member of parliament, but he was in government as an administrator. Remember, he was a DO for the longest time. When the government was, when government was government, during Moi's time. Yeah. So this is a person who understands, the fundamentals of administration. So, and that is why you can see the transition was quick from an MP to a DP, because he understands power. So we cannot just say that Gachagua is not experienced in politics, and that is what people, that is how people, fail to study Gachagua. When you say I'm a 3-term MP, he's just a 1-term MP who became deputy president. What can he tell me? He knows more about the ground than you know, because most of the times these politicians just go to parliament to debate on issues they don't even understand. They get paid to pass bills they don't even understand. But you have a guy who has been on ground executing the same bills. The policies you make, he has been there executing. So he understands more on the ground as opposed to these members of parliament. And that is why you see him, he is able now to start. You have seen the transition. Everybody has seen the transition, myself included. The Gachagua who was sworn in is not the same Gachagua we have today. We have seen the growth, and it comes with the office. Sometimes, the office will change you. Sometimes we say that power reveals, your true state as a man. But other times, it can transform you. Because now he has advisors. Now he has an infrastructure, an institution that he leads. And from that, we have seen what he's able to achieve. As a 1-term, MP who has become a deputy president, that is somebody we cannot assume in any sort of, in any sort of outcome or any sort of arrangement. We cannot overlook the Gachagua factor.
All right.
Yes.
Well, now, eventually, he'll have to face the mountain, or maybe he's facing the mountain as we speak. Well, climbing this mountain, just how difficult is it for Gachagua? Yes, he's the son of the soil, very true, but there is many obstacles that comes with it. The same seat that currently he occupies, maybe someone wants it. He is a very ambitious man. Maybe he's aiming for a top seat. Maybe someone somewhere is still aiming for that. Now there is the battle to control the heart and soul of what reached Mount Kenya. Do you think he has what it takes to actually be there?
Now, what is now his biggest hurdle is, the hypocrisy factor. Because the same Gachagua who went to the mountain and told them, William Ruto is our kingpin. He has now to go back on his word. And what is bond? It binds you. And as a man, any man who goes back on his word is not respectable. And that is why you see, the politicians who are deemed or labeled as watermelons, they are not taken too seriously because they are known to go back on their words. And but I have seen, Gachagua try to go back on his word smartly. He's apologizing. I was wrong. I said words I was not supposed to say. I insulted people I was not supposed to insult. And when you use that route, I think Kenyans are forgiving. And when he goes there, the forgiveness route, I think he might be able now to evoke the same sympathy that got them elected to get the mountain, the Mount Kenya people behind him. Because I want you to realize, something about the Mount Kenya region. The first time they sought, we have had three Limurus. The first one was, when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta convinced them that they needed to unite because of the Oginga Odinga factor. So they needed to come together so that they could get back their political control. The second time they united is when, Mwai Kibaki convinced them, Moi had to go. They united because they had a common enemy. The first time the common enemy was Oginga. The second time the common enemy was Moi. The third time they united because they perceived to have a common enemy in the ICC. And that is why they united behind another kingpin. So if Gachagua is able to convince them that they have a common enemy, they might unite again and have another kingpin. So this all, it depends on how he plays it. It's all in the hands of Gachagua. And if he was prudent enough, and I see him trying to do it, the best thing he would do is pursue Uhuru Kenyatta.
And what value will Uhuru Kenyatta add? Because he's a retired president.
We have a saying in the Mount Kenya region that says, what a man sees while seated, a boy cannot see when he's on top of a tree. And now they're starting to see, what Uhuru Kenyatta was warning them against. So they feel that they have wronged him. So the mountain owes Uhuru Kenyatta. And if Gachagua is able to play at that, apologize, go back to Uhuru Kenyatta, get his forgiveness, the people who feel offended by Gachagua for maybe going against Uhuru Kenyatta will say, well, if Uhuru Kenyatta forgave Gachagua, who am I to hold a grudge against him? And that is how he will win back the mountain, unfragmented.
Okay. Now, the bone of contention, another very key topic, and there is a thorn in the flesh of many politicians in this country. It has really touched others on the wrong nerve. I'm talking about now the one man, one vote, one shilling that Rigathi is apparently advocating for. And this President William Ruto has said that such move could actually divide the country into tribal line. And it is something that is a hot debate right now. And Deputy President came out clear and said, so what's wrong with, uniting as a community, championing for your rights? So this one man, one vote, one shilling, do you think it's some sort of a tribal kind of thing and it will actually divide, Mount Kenya itself, because there is those politicians that support and others that are opposed to it? What do you think about that?
What I think about it, Evans, is that, we have a problem in this country where anytime, the mountain is seen to unite, it is labeled, tribal. When, let's say, the Luya side tries to advocate for something, when the northeastern side tries to advocate for something, it is normal. It is normal for the northeastern side to advocate for one man, one vote, 1 kilometer, but it is tribal for the mountain to advocate for one man, one vote, 1 shilling. And it's just a matter of common sense, Evans. We don't distribute these resources to bare land. We distribute the resources to people. And when we say these resources should be shared on a one man, one vote, one man, one vote, 1 shilling basis, it means that if I get a shilling in Kitale, you get a shilling in Kisumu, someone else gets a shilling in Eldoret. What's tribal about that? We're not in any way trying to downplay or demean any community. We're just saying, if we are contributing equally to this basket, the Kenyan basket, why should we not, reap the benefits equally? Why should we have, a Mohammed somewhere get 10 shillings when I get 1 shilling in Mount Kenya in the name of, historical injustices?
Well, the problem here is about, when it comes to development, it's fair to say there is some regions that are more developed than the other, and we need resources to be distributed to other regions to actually try and boost this and some sort of try to bridge the gap. So don't you think one man, one vote, 1 shilling could actually derail the same effort?
It is not going to derail the effort.
And balance between
it is not going to
the
derail the
marginalized
effort,
community and of course the advantaged one.
That is why we have the equalization fund. We're simply saying let us have one man, one vote, one shilling, where I and Evans get the same share of our, our national basket. At the same time, we acknowledge that, we have an Amina somewhere who is disadvantaged, and that is why we have the equalization fund. But we cannot have have a bigger share when it comes to CDF and other, another government, distribution, and then at the same time give you the equalization fund. Now that is way too far gone. It is okay, we acknowledge that the equalization fund is needed, and that is why we have it. So why would we have the equalization fund and still disenfranchise some people? Let us have equal share of this national basket. At the same time, we can from now this basket, when everyone gets one man, one vote and one shilling, then now we can go back and say, how about now the equalization fund? This region is far off, left behind. So what do we do with that? If we have $1 million to spare for roads, we give them we give them the $1 million. If we have 20 million to spare, we give them the 20 million. When every constituency has one man, one vote, one shilling. That is all we are asking for from Mount Kenya region.
But I still don't see the fairness in it.
There is fairness.
For example,
okay.
Let's take a practical example.
Okay.
Let's use the good county here, Kiambu County, for example. We have infrastructures like well-connected tarmac roads. Everything seems to be smooth. Let me take you to a town like, let's say a county like Lamu, for instance. There, the road connecting to the main road there is something else. So, do you need funds, more funds for what? Which development?
Okay. Development is not only in terms of road, and that is where we go wrong. It is not just in terms of infrastructure.
Okay, you have mentioned about education. Okay. Fair enough. So let's.
Yes, I'm trying to go there. Let's say we have 1 million people, in Kiambu, and 20,000 people maybe in a region in northeastern, right? When it comes to the sharing of the national resources, you say, okay, let us allocate these 1 million people per year, let's say 200 million. And then at the same time we say, these 20,000 people, let us give them the same 200 million. Is that fair? It is not fair, right? But when it comes to the CDF or the share that goes to constituencies, when we say if they have 2 million people and this other side has 20,000 people, how about we give them, let's say, 1,000 shilling per head?
So
when we do that, after that, now we can go. We don't give 100% of the national resources to constituencies. So we give a certain percentage, and of that percentage is which we are saying every man should get a shilling.
All right.
After that, we can go back to the equalization fund.
Let me understand this.
Because we assume that just because a region is we assume that because Kiambu region is maybe more advanced, that we have no marginalized people in Kiambu, but we do. We have slums.
Let me try. Let me understand this.
Okay.
Well, you talk about, let's say, CDF for education. Fair enough. That's the right for every child. Meaning, if I allocate, let's say, 20,000 for a child from Kiambu, the same 20,000 will go to a child in.
Because they go to the same schools.
In Lamu, Samburu.
Yeah. There is no mango school fees for Mount Kenya.
Let's talk about some other very key infrastructure, like let's say the hospitals. Talking about the roads, people in Garissa need let's say water. Do you think when you distribute these resources, 1 man, 1 shillings, the way you claim, do you think development will ever reach these people?
Evans, what percentage of the national resources go to the counties? About 15%. When we say this, of this 15%, it should be equitable. Then we can have, from the remaining 85%, now the government can offer equalization fund and try maybe to speed up the development in this maybe marginalized counties. What is wrong with that? Why should we offer the equalization fund and still take away from the highly populated areas? It does not make sense, because like I said, we have slums in Nairobi. Nairobi is the most developed county, but we have the highest levels of poverty here in Nairobi.
Right.
We saw it during the floods. You cannot say simply because you live in Nairobi, you're more advantaged than someone who lives in Garissa. Maybe they're even more advantaged than you.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears to controversial finance bill proposals. Remember, now we are at the stage of public participation. Well, this particular finance bill has really, evoked some sort of reaction from Kenyans. They say it is a punitive, tax to actually impose on struggling Kenyans. I want to get your real reaction on this. Do you think maybe the government is overburdening Kenyans with this quote-unquote punitive tax, as they call it?
I think the biggest mistake that the government is making is expecting to prosper on taxes. And as Winston Churchill put it, no nation can prosper by taxing its citizens. What you do is you attract investors, because now you have money coming from outside your country into your country, and that way you are gaining. But when you take money from Evans, that's like taking money from your left pocket into the government to the right pocket. You're simply now rotating money around the economy. There is no growth to be seen. So what this country should do is, reduce the taxes. When you reduce the taxes, you can expand the tax base. What do I mean by this, Evans? We have 5.7 million taxpayers in Kenya. But we have over 22 million people over the age of 18. What does that mean, Evans? We have over 16 million people who don't have jobs, who don't have sources of income. And instead of overtaxing or overburdening the 5.7 million taxpayers, to share the burden of these 22 million others, just try to expand the tax base. How? Reduce the taxes, then we will have more businesses. Have business incentives where you can have subsidies, where maybe any company that is employing maybe over 1,000 people, they get subsidies on taxes. They don't, they pay less taxes, and now you will invite more investors. I want us to look at the most prosperous countries in Africa. We are saying that our target is to, tax, have the tax to GDP ratio of 22%. That's where we're headed, right? Now from 16 to 22%. But look at an economy like Nigeria, an economy like Ethiopia and Egypt. Those countries, when you look at their GDP to tax ratio, it's below 10%. The only country that is where we are maybe headed to is South Africa. And I want you to realize that when it comes to South Africa, we have 20% of the white minorities controlling 80% of the economy. Okay. And that is why they influence largely on these Western ideas, because the economy is controlled basically by the West.
All right.
So when we are taxing, we have to ask ourselves: Are we developing these policies for our people or for the West? Okay. Are we doing it to please the West or our people? Who got us into power? Whose interest are we supposed to look at? Because if any interest should ever come first, it is the interest of the people.
Okay. Well, we have 16% VAT on bread, then we have 2.5% on motor vehicles. Motor vehicle tax, yeah. And this is the bone of contention between this, and they feel like this is just too much for the for the people in matatus, and as far as motor vehicle, this 2.5% proposed deduction is concerned. For them, they say that this will render many jobless, and of course, they are fighting for the rights of the hustlers, of which most of the time they bought these vehicles. That is one, but pretty one. Even as we wind up this particular discussion, just want to get your reaction on this. Now the public is giving their views about some of the recommendations, what they want to see change in this finance bill before it's presented to the parliament and eventually discussion about it. But do you think maybe the views gathered by the public, do you think maybe it will have much of impact as the final product now, the finance bill of 2024? Do you think maybe their views will be incorporated in this?
We can learn from history, and nothing much happened, from the public participation in the 2023 finance bill that became an act. Nothing substantial happened, and the only things they changed are maybe the things that we didn't ask for. And when you have a country that is, sitting in boardrooms and making laws that affect 50 million Kenyans without having to ask or having to seek public participation or putting it into consideration, because now it is just, they do it for cosmetic reasons. It's just for legitimacy, to legitimize the process, because legally they have to do it, but it does not amount to much. And we have the problem we have is that our parliament is, they answer to a master. They don't answer to the electorates, and that is why they push agendas that are not well suited with the people, but agendas that are there to please their masters.
Okay.
And that it is very saddening, because you cannot justify the 16% VAT on bread. They say that the justification is that the bread is causing what? Was it cancer or what?
Okay. Well, but these are some of the proposals, and of course, public have been giving their views on what they want to be at least changed, and given some of the recommendations in regard to this finance bill of 2024. And of course, that's bring us to this discussion, the state of the nation. Thank you so much, Eston Maina, for making time. There's a political scientist. Your time is all appreciated.